Maybe we'll start a little early at 12, 1 o'clock. All right. Well, officially, I would like to call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. I would like to go ahead and take this opportunity again to please, if you could call the quorum, Ms. Ramirez.
Yes, ma'am. We have yourself, Trustee Dr. Mackey, Trustee Steen, the Mayor, Vice Chair Romero. All trustees are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you for confirming the quorum. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Meyer to provide the safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance.
Good afternoon. We first wanted to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If the door is locked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and we will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready. Will you please stand with me for an invocation? We are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing important responsibilities. We ask that you would guide our thoughts and our actions so that we may have a successful meeting of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. Help us to accomplish our goals while displaying your character. Help us to do good, to be honest, to serve others, and to fulfill our obligations to our community. We pray these things in your name. Amen. Now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. The next item of the agenda is public comment.
Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any of this meeting's posted agenda items. We will invite pre-registered speakers to speak, and they may only address the board on CPS Energy related business listed on the posted agenda. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they are going to speak about. For this meeting, we will have 3 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. Thomas, will you please cue the timer? Our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Deborah Ponce.
Good evening, board and invited guest in the back. My name is Henrietta LaGrange, proud member of the Mulberry Street Girl Gang. My topic will be ERCOT. I would like more information on the contingency reserve service that's supposed to meet demand. More information of work on the reliability standard. CEO Pablo Vega, ERCOT. When I finally get to meet him, he needs to explain to this community how ERCOT maintains a non-profit status that is bigger than a horse pill to swallow. I don't understand ERCOT and its non-profit. Also, to explain why ERCOT has not updated all the infrastructure to meet the supply and demand. One very important information that's needed: if he has the correct number of citizens in Texas that lost their lives because they froze to death, is he still counting? one thing for certain is how many millions is ERCOT willing to give and reimburse CPS Energy for its citizens who lost appliances in homes, plumbing pipes, actually too many things to mention in this short time. CEO, Mr. Pablo Vega, I am requesting a face-to-face meeting with you and your board to make all of you aware of your responsibility and neglect in not improving your antiquated infrastructure. To be able to meet the supply and demand that is your responsibility, not us as consumers. You expect us to make sacrifices for you and your board. We already do enough. When you accepted the CEO position, you made yourself responsible, and I'm holding you to it.
Ms. LaGrange, I'm sorry. I think you're giving a very good statement, but I have to be respectful and responsible for everybody else who's behind you to speak. So
I understand.
Thank you, ma'am.
But I feel like the opportunity is now. But also, I would like for him to come and visit some of the infrastructure that is ruined because of his unwillingness to update his infrastructure. And I do thank you for your comment, and with respect, I will stop.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Deborah Ponce, followed by Dee Dee Balmores.
Hello, my name is Debbie Ponce, Climate Justice Organizer with Public Citizen. I am speaking on the behalf of Dee Dee Balmores with Public Citizen on agenda number 5. Recently, the Rate Advisory Committee members were asked to come up with questions to be used in an anonymous survey that would give input to trustees on bill affordability. And I believe my fellow RAC members tried to come up with thoughtful questions for the survey. What I'm not clear on is whether yes or no survey answers are sufficient to help you all make important decisions on bill affordability, especially ahead of the upcoming rate hike. This is why fellow RAC member Anaqua Garcia and I chose to address each question with some explanation, because we felt a simple yes or no answer didn't provide enough information on 3 areas the RAC has been discussing over several months, which are the affordability discount programs, conservation, and demand management. All of you have a copy of the answers we submitted. We hope you all take some time to read our input. The RAC members' term runs through July. I've asked a couple of times, who will advocate for ratepayers after that, since the rate hike is on the horizon. I'm asking the board to reconvene the RAC in order to provide the board with thoughtful input, but more importantly, to continue to advocate for ratepayers in a time when so many working class families are struggling to just get by. Thank you, and that's from Dee Dee. And I personally would like to support the continuance of the RAC committee. As a single parent, the rate hike is going to hurt my family and many families I live near. And so the RAC committee does very important work, and I hope that you'll continue. Thank you.
That was our last, that was our last registered speaker. I'll now turn the meeting back to Chair Gonzalez.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Item number 4, excuse me, chair remarks. And so on that note, here we go. Again, good afternoon and welcome everyone. I really appreciated the energy as we began the meeting. It's really nice to see everybody congregate and talk and be excited to be here because we do have very important work. So again, let me extend my gratitude to each board member for your exceptional professional engagement, commitment to this organization, and invaluable input during our recent in-person board strategy session. Our collective efforts have led to the establishment of a refreshed board vision, designed to navigate the rapidly evolving energy sector by prioritizing and making investments in the improved generation portfolio, improvements to grid resiliency, and exploration of pioneering technology. We will steadfast uphold the principles of financial integrity and transparency while ensuring affordable energy rates for our customers. The board's accomplishments over the past 4 years provide a powerful catalyst for reflection and a springboard for future endeavors. As a chairman, I pledge to amplify the board's impact, building upon solid foundation laid by my predecessors, Dr. Willis Mackey and I was going to call him doctor, I was upgrading Mr. Steen here, but the Honorable John Steen. Their combined efforts in conjunction with the Mayor, Vice Chair, Dr. Francis Romero, and their CEO, our CEO, Rudy Garza, will set our organization on a course that guarantees a brighter future and ensures a successful transition of CPS Energy for next generation customers. So again, that strategy session was important. I also want to thank the CPS employees that contributed months of input. I think it was really important. And again, thank you, colleagues, for your support. Now I would like to focus a little bit on the public input session that will take place this afternoon. This year, again, we initiated an in-person quarterly session. The second one will take place today, this evening, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. So please join us. Customer concerns that were raised during our inaugural public input session in April have been addressed promptly by our customer strategy team. Again, I want to remind everyone that there's multiple avenues that exist for your engagement with us. We have a detailed list of how you can do that through our website, and we encourage you to continue to actively participate in these opportunities. This is important in an ongoing effort to better understand our customers, to meet their needs where they live, work, and play. We also plan to launch a survey as part of our new online public input tool. This will be a new tool that we're going to be implementing that would allow us, again, to engage more in real time by providing our customers with an online survey with an array of different questions. We urge our community, again, to engage. Your voice is important. There are an array of summer community events that are scheduled. Not everyone goes to the website, so please feel free to follow us on social media or walk into a customer service center, and many of this information is available to you, also through our newsletters. Summer is here. As we continue to reach high temperatures, I want to remind you and our customers about our color-coded conservation system in place aimed at helping control energy bills, conserve energy, and support the state grid reliability. You can sign up to receive energy alerts. You can also meet with a representative in person at a customer service location near you. Expect us to communicate the conservation levels through the CPS website, electronic billboard messages, social media, radio, print, online and offline, and various other public outreach efforts. For customer assistance, again, I want to stress that we do have an array of different programs to work with you. Our engagement teams will be in the community again all summer long to provide tips and information on how you can serve energy. Again, you can visit our website. The following events are scheduled. Wednesday, July the 12th in Lytle Community Center. Wednesday, July the 26th, Crossroad Church. Wednesday, August the 9th, Mary Magdalene Catholic Church. August the 12th, Nelson Wolf Municipal Stadium parking lot. There's also several rebates that you can qualify. Please, again, visit our website or, again, learn through one of our customer centers. I, again, want to encourage you to again, meet with time, plan for this expected heated summer, and find ways that you can qualify and prepare. And this is both for not just our residential, but also commercial customers. Give our energy advisor a call at 210-353-2222. Again, that phone number is 210-353-2222 with any questions, any assistance you may need with your bill. We are here to help you. And just a quick reminder, during the heat alerts for this area, our terms and conditions at CPS Energy mirror PCU's rules. We do not disconnect in days of two days after, I'm sorry, I can't read my own penmanship. We don't do disconnects when there's an alert. the day of or 2 days after the alert. And again, we remind you, and this could be clarified, I think Deanna's going to speak and restate this, but I wanted to just to make sure that, as you can see, we have a balance on our books that for 2 years has been a point of contention. And that's just another example that we care about our people. People come first. And so it's just another reminder that during this heated summer that we're going to have, that we do have a policy. And we're here to support you. There's an array of different ways. Please take initiative. For those of you who know of anybody who's elderly, take the time to help them out to fill out a form. There's a lot of individuals that don't have transportation. So be good to your neighbors and do what's right by them. Again, on that note, those are all my, one quick thing. Some other positive news. Today's Dr. Mackey's birthday. I want to give him a shout out. Happy birthday, Dr. Mackey. And then I think that's all I have for today. And again, thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to finishing the agenda today. On that note, Dr. Romero, can you please proceed with reporting on the Rate Advisory Committee?
Yes, thank you. Just a few points to update everybody on the RAC and what's been going on. As you know, the RAC has been meeting most recently on the question of rate structure, specifically focusing their efforts on how to lower the energy burden for lower income residential customers. As part of the discussion, the RAC has pursued the concept that energy burden could be reduced by increasing affordability, and under the leadership of our chair, their chair, I wish I were part of RAC, but I observe RAC, of Chair Reed Williams and Vice Chair Dr. Cantu, affordability was divided into three components, which we have discussed here before, and RAC has approached each of those in turn. That was bill relief, conservation, and demand response. And for all of those, staff has provided presentations including benchmarking on what has and has not worked for other Texas utilities that have piloted or deployed various customer assistance programs. When the RAC met in May, they agreed to work to aggregate their views on this really broad topic through a survey, which you just heard mentioned before, which was related to all of those pieces. The RAC did participate in the development of the survey, which ended up being 18 questions, and determined this would be a primary method of providing input to the board on how to address affordability. The RAC completed this survey in mid-June. Majority of the RAC members participated, and as you just heard, 2 RAC members submitted comments rather than just answering the questions, and so we have those as well. The survey responses have been shared with the RAC, with staff, myself, and at the next meeting, which is this Thursday here, June 29th at 4, which is 1 hour later than our normal time, the RAC will discuss the results. I will, of course, attend that meeting. That will be the final meeting of this convening of the RAC. And afterwards, I will provide the board with the input the RAC has provided. As you'll all remember, the terms had actually ended for the RAC members, but we held them in holdover status until we could finish with the charge that they had been giving. And at a forthcoming board meeting, Chair Williams will provide more details on the survey and the overall RAC input to the board. And I know that their input will be considered, and where we deem it appropriate, we will incorporate into future requests that we make. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda will be item number 6, and that is the at-large appointments to the Citizens Advisory Committee, CAC. Ms. Yvonne Pelayo, if you could please, there you go. Hey, Yvonne, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Gonzalez and trustees. As has been done several times in the recent past, Local Government Relations comes before you to introduce a candidate nominated to join the Citizens Advisory Committee. As a reminder, candidates for the committee are either appointed by a San Antonio City Council member or nominated by the committee as at-large members. On behalf of the committee, I will present the nominee who will address the board and then request your approval to join the committee. In addition, after your consideration of the nomination, the committee chair, Mr. John Kelly, and our president and CEO will recognize our outgoing member, the mayor for the city of Live Oak, Mary Dennis, so that we can thank her for her dedication and service. The committee includes a total of 15 positions, 10 of which are appointed by each of the San Antonio City Council members, which are illustrated here. The committee also includes 5 at-large member positions, and the 4 current at-large members are illustrated here. The 1 at-large nominee coming before you today, Mr. Aaron Stein, is illustrated at the far right side of the slide. Here with me today is the nominee, Mr. Aaron Stein, and I will step aside for a minute to allow him to address the board.
Thank you, Ms. Palayo, and good afternoon, trustees. My name is Aaron Stein. I'm currently a project manager with the Pacific Northwest National Lab, which is based in Richmond, Washington, but I'm based in San Antonio, and I work to support the Army in their energy and climate resilience goals. I'm very interested in joining the CAC, and I have been for some time, because I'd like to bring my knowledge and passion for...
I'm going to interrupt. If you could speak into the mic. I'm not sure if it's on.
It's on. I'll just...
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm interested in joining the CAC to bring my knowledge and passion for energy to this group, and also to learn from this unique opportunity to become a more informed member of my community. I look forward to being an active member in the CAC who will bring my passion for energy and professional experience, but also to come with an open mind and a willingness and a desire to listen and learn more from this group and their perspectives. In terms of how I plan to engage the community, I certainly endeavor to be actively engaged in outreach and look forward to learning from my peers on what they see as the most effective approaches for community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Is that it? Is there any other nominees? Is that it?
No, this is the only nominee. Again, I will now turn it over to you and the board for conversation and regarding the nomination, and then subsequent to that, we will move to the recognition of Mayor Mary Dennis.
Okay, thank you so much. Does the board have any questions or comments for the nominee who presented himself? Do you mind if I override to the mayor first? Y'all decide who goes first.
I just wanted to say, I met Aaron, I don't want to embarrass Aaron Stein, but I met him when he was an MPA student at UTSA, and he was just such an excellent student. I've never forgotten his skills. And as I recall, his capstone paper, which is one of the best I have ever read, was all about electric utilities. And I had trouble understanding it, but I knew how good it was. And I know Aaron has done a lot of work in the community. He has connections with the school boards, with the whole climate action community, and now with the Army. I think he would be an excellent addition to this board.
I think Dr. Romero.
Can I cut you off really quick, Mayor? I'm sorry, just so that we get this procedurally, we don't have to do it again. If we ask for a motion to approve the candidate, this can be the discussion for the approval of the candidate. I just didn't hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, so I have a motion and I have a second. That
Go ahead.
discussion continues.
Thank you.
I think Trustee Romero answered my question, which is how I'm not familiar with Aaron or his work, but it looks incredible on paper qualifications. So I was going to ask how he found out about the CAC because I think he'll be an incredible addition to the group. So I'm glad he was a recruit, Dr. Romero, and that's very high praise.
I think you're going to find that we're very active. We're a very engaged board. We're going to
That's
be looking
fantastic.
for good talent.
Well, thank you very much for stepping forward, Aaron. We look forward to your contributions. Thank you, Chair.
I think there's no need for a motion. I think he's been approved, correct?
Oh, shit.
We have a
Okay.
motion and a second. We're in discussion, then we just need a vote if there's no more discussion.
Now can I have a motion to approve the appointment to the Citizens Advisory Committee?
We've done it.
Okay, so is there a roll call?
Yep.
Okay.
Chair Dr. Trustee Dr. Mackey. Trustee Steen?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. City of Live Oak Mayor Mary Dennis has served on our committee for 6 years. She has served CPS Energy's community and stakeholders with a deep commitment and a great enthusiasm for the committee's work. I will step aside for a brief moment for Chair Kelly to give a few remarks.
Thanks, Yvonne. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate the service that Mayor Dennis has given to the CAC. She has just been outstanding. She's one of these rare people that walks into a room and lights the place up. She's just the very best that you could hope for and somebody serving on a committee like this. She has helped us improve our esprit de corps, and she always has positive things to say. So she is very well recognized. She serves on the Texas Municipal League, has been involved in that, and she's certainly done an excellent job as mayor of Live Oak. So, Mayor Dennis, if you'd like to come up and make a comment. Most politicians are ready to make a comment.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. What a pleasure to be here. You all really didn't have to do this, but I really appreciate it. It's certainly been an honor to serve on this committee. I remember the first day that when we were in the other building and I went in for my interview, and I was so excited, but I was just coming from around the courthouse because Judge Wolf had just named me as chair of the 26 suburban cities. So I'm always willing and ready to help to serve my city, my community in any way I can, and this has certainly been a blessing to be able to serve on CAC. I told them they'll probably miss me, but they probably won't miss my 100 questions because I always wanted to know the details and to make sure that I was representing the people that could not be in the room, and that's always been very important to me. And wherever I'm serving is that remember those who can't be in the room. They're at work, taking care of their families and doing the things that they have to do. So I always try to be that voice to make sure we remember those, that all of us are included and treated equally. So I just appreciate, again, the opportunity. I want to thank the local government, they were there, team. But I would like to thank them so much for how they've worked with me and helped me along this way, and I just really appreciate it. I'm looking at those pictures, I'm like, oh man, it's a lot of fun times the last 6 years. I can't believe that it's come and gone so fast, but visiting the nuclear plant, that was really exciting and just really good times, and I hope that I made a difference and made an impact, but thank you for the opportunity to serve. And one last thing I wanted to say, the board now is amazing, and the CAC, the members that we have there are going to do an excellent job. I think we've got a great team of folks, and glad to see Aaron joining the team, and so it's going to be good, and I know that they will continue to do the good work that they do. And I have to say, my friend Dr. Mackey, he used to live in Live Oak, and he voted for me, so thank you, Dr. Mackey. And my very good friend, Mayor Nurnberg, very good friend of my family. Sierra says hello. She just got back from Paris 2 days ago. She's been studying over there for the last couple of weeks. But thank you all again. Thank you, Chair Kelly. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just have one other thing I want to say to Mayor Dennis, and that is when she decides to run for governor, she already has my vote.
Amazing.
We have a little gift. I wouldn't say we necessarily do this for all of our retiring members, but Mayor Dennis has been so spectacular. We want to be sure and recognize her, and we have a little bouquet for her as well as all right. Thank you.
Okay, while you're taking a photo, the mayor wants, okay, I'm like trying to figure out, you want to speak first or want to take a picture? Both of them will take a picture, and then they're going to speak. This is improv. This is how much I appreciate this distinguished individual. Distinguished servant it is. So let's see who gets back. Whoever gets back gets to speak first. Let's see who that is. Okay, you got it. Mayor?
I'm not going to miss a public opportunity just to thank Mayor Mary Dennis for being an incredible friend, but also people should know is just an amazing mentor and role model for me and I would say dozens, if not hundreds of mayors across Texas, city council members as well. So we have a real asset and force in our community in Mary Dennis, and I just want to say thank you, Mary, for everything you do for our community.
Dr. Mackey?
I'd like to also thank Mayor Dennis. I lived in her little district, city limits at one time, a couple of years, and I voted. But before then, when I was superintendent for 8 years, we would meet, all the 5 mayors would meet every month. Superintendent and all the 5 mayors, we met every month. And Mary was just she would bring that bright. I mean, I look forward to the meeting, but she had some great conversations, a lot of questions, and kept us in line as all me, and she kept us in line. And that was wonderful. And then the opportunity come at this time for being this board opening. I didn't know much about it. Mary was on that committee. And she said, Dr. Mackey, why don't you apply for that? Why don't you be a part of that? You know, you need to be a part of community service and work. I said, Mary, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. And then several other people called, and then I decided to do that. But just besides Mary, if you look at Live Oak and you look at all the things that are transpiring in Live Oak, a hotel, all that IKEA, all those restaurants on Interstate 35 and 1604 and 35, that's Mary Dennis working hard with her team and making that possible. And I'm just proud of the area because I live in Selma, but it's right next door to Live Oak, and I get to see these things every day. And the respect that she has from all those mayors. And if I want to talk to the mayors, I call Mary. I say, Mary, I got us concerned. And Mary takes care of it, you know, and she'll get me in the meeting to be able to speak to the mayors. And I appreciate that. You know, Mayor Dennis, we're going to miss you. You serve well. You do a lot of great things for us at CPS Energy on the committee, and we wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. We're now going to proceed to item number 7, which is convene to executive session. In executive session, we're going to discuss the following: A, attorney-client privilege matters, 551.071. B, competitive matters, 551.074. Let's proceed to executive session. Ms. Ramirez, if you can take us to executive session.
At this time, the board is going into recess into executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code as outlined by the chair. And it is 1:32 as we go into executive session.
Ms. Ramirez, please bring the board back to, from the executive session. And we'll now move to agenda number 8, the consent agenda. Go ahead.
Real quick, it's 2:22 PM and the board's concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken, no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We do have a quorum and all members are present.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed to item number 8 on the agenda. So I'm going to read the following. The following items are on the consent agenda. Approval of consent items. A, amendment to the rule of order. B, minutes of the regular board meeting held on 04/24/2023. C, payment to the city of San Antonio for May 2023. D, procurement items. 1, general services, specialty scaffolding services, and 2, general services, weatherization services. Before we vote to vote.
There's 2 more.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. 3, general services, physical security services, and then 4, commodities and material goods, enterprise fuel. I would like to go ahead and pull item number 8, amendment to the rules of order, and if I could get a vote for B through D.
I move to approve B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Aye. We're going to go ahead and discuss item number 8, amendment to the rules of order. Sting, proceed.
In regard to the proposed amendments to the rules of order for the CPS Energy Board of Trustees, I'd like to begin by asking a few questions about the process. So who initiated this process?
The process has been initiated, again, like many things. I've asked as a chair to review previous policies and procedures that are in place. What I've noticed is many have been antiquated, and so this was an opportunity to refresh them, just like we did the strategic plan, sir.
Oh, good. Were any of the other trustees consulted or advised about these amendments?
As a chairman, I took it upon myself to discuss with legal to ensure that I was following previous protocol.
Good, thank you. And then who actually drafted the proposed amendment? Was it Ms. Ramirez and her staff, or was outside counsel involved?
It was this internal staff with recommendations from the chair.
All right, and thank you for allowing this to be pulled from the consent agenda. And just to note, the last time we amended the rules of order was at our January 30th, 2023 meeting, and it was a regular agenda item where the changes were read aloud and explained by our general counsel and discussed by trustees before a vote was taken. And so I'm thank you for the opportunity to address it. So, I have substantive concerns about these amendments.
Just for a second.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
This item amendment to the rules of order, do we need to make a recommendation before we start discussing?
I think we're going to let Mr. Steen discuss, and then we can vote.
I would suggest a motion to approve, so
Yes,
there's a basis for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve it, and then second, and then he can discuss it.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Steen.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, as I said, I have some substantive concerns, and in the interest of time, I'll highlight a few. First, in regard to proposed elimination of paragraph H of Article 4, which reads, quote, "If before or during a meeting, the trustees considered the meeting materials of a specific item as previously shared with the public to be insufficient, the board may delay the consideration of the item until a future meeting," close quote. I'd like to know the reasoning behind the elimination of this language. Second, in regard to the newly created Article 6 entitled Core Values and Principles, this is well and good. I question whether it's appropriate to include this in a document entitled Rules of Order. In my experience, these core values and principles should be the subject of a separate document, which should be drawn up and adopted after vigorous and thorough discussion and much feedback from the trustees. We were all given these Robert's Rules of Order, and this is what our This is what our rules of order are modeled on, this Robert's Rules of Order, and there's no mention of core values and principles, and it's a 700-page book. Rules of order are merely the mechanics for facilitating discussion and group decision-making. Third, in regard to the Article 5 entitled Subject Matter of Board Meetings, newly created paragraph A purports to restrict a trustee from using an inquiry as a means to raise his or her own comments or arguments on a subject not posted for consideration. This prohibition needs to be broadened to include comments made at every meeting under the title Chair's Remarks. For example, at our April 24th, 2023 meeting, the chair under this agenda item provided extensive remarks on the supply chain issues facing CPS Energy. Using the same logic, such remarks should be similarly prohibited. Fourth and finally, within newly created Article 7 entitled Conduct of Meetings appears this proposed prohibition found in paragraph C1E, quote, board members shall refrain from speaking adversely on prior decisions of CPS Energy, close quote. I'll just repeat that for emphasis. Board members shall refrain from speaking adversely on prior decisions of CPS Energy. All I can say is that this is quite an extraordinary restriction on trustees who are members of a 5-person board and have, according to our ordinance, quote, absolute and complete authority and power with reference to the control, management, and operations of the systems, close quote. For over 40 years, I've been active on many boards and commissions as a director or trustee or as general counsel, and I've never come across something like this where you're trying to ban criticism. It's unheard of and altogether inappropriate. It should be done respectfully and with decorum, but a trustee must be allowed to speak freely when he or she feels a past decision was wrongly made and must be corrected for the good of the company. So, Madam Chair, I think I can make this motion. I'd like to move that we table this agenda item to provide more time to work on revisions to our rules of order, including seeking additional advice from outside counsel about this attempt to ban criticism. Can I make a motion to table?
You certainly can make a motion. I would say that it would.
Probably won't get
a
seconded.
friendly amendment. If Chair Dr. Mackey accepts it as a friendly amendment, that could be a friendly amendment. If he does not, you would need a second to proceed with tabling it. Is there a second? And the motion fails. We are still in the discussion portion of the motion to approve that has been seconded.
I believe Dr. Romero will have a comment.
Okay.
I kind of figure you were getting ready. If not,
No.
that's okay. I'm sorry. I'm anticipating.
Well, I did want to have a little discussion.
Sure.
If I could ask some questions.
Please do.
I would like a little bit more background on Trustee Steen's first comment on Article 4, paragraph H, and why that was removed. Is it duplicative or? Because I also wonder why we would not have that.
Article 4, what?
This would be in Article 4, paragraph H. If before or during the meeting, the trustees consider the meeting materials for a specific item as previously shared with the public to be insufficient, the board may delay the consideration of that item until a future meeting, and that has been removed. So I would also like to understand that removal.
That item is duplicative of the section that sets out the process of putting together agenda and submitting it to the chair for approval prior to the meeting. So I believe it's duplicative.
Okay, can you tell us where that section is? Sounds
Article 7 covers the conduct of the meeting, and I am looking for. Yes, I believe Article 7, when read in total, also gives the exact same leeway to all of the trustees.
Where is that?
When read in total. I don't understand. I guess I'm going to make sure I understand the question.
I guess I just would like to know more where it is, because I also think it's important that if we were given a presentation and asked to vote on something, And then one of us said, well, this wasn't clear, this wasn't, that we were voting on it, or anything we want to say, that this wasn't made clear to the public ahead of time. I would not want to give up our right to,
Rules of order and Robert's rules are two different things. This is more of a code of conduct.
Yes, I would say under Article 7, Section C, the general procedure, the general rules of parliamentary procedure as defined in here, consistent with all these laws. To the extent not inconsistent with the rules, we can use Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order allow you all to pull an item from an agenda and not vote on it at any time.
okay.
Yeah, you can put it.
It's still there.
Okay, I just wanted that out there for the record.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. And I guess I don't know the answer to this, but,
And just to clarify, factual statement earlier, outside counsel was consulted in reviewing the draft that I created.
oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify too, the one that Trustee Steen asked about. So this is Article 7. C 1E. Board members shall refrain from speaking adversely on prior decisions of CPS Energy.
Yes, if I may explain the intent, that might help. It certainly was not to restrict any criticism. It certainly was not to restrict any opinions of any trustee on this board. It was meant to restrict repeated criticism of past acts that can't be changed. So for instance, criticism of something that has already occurred. I think when discussing this was a policy that we cancel, I'm using an example. If the criticism is this is a policy we changed and I don't think it should be changed, I think that is an absolutely perfectly acceptable comment. What this was meant to do is to remove criticism for past board decisions without addressing the underlying impact. Simply to say a past decision was a bad decision and that was the bad decision has not been productive in discussions. And so the intent was to close that down, not the sharing of opinions. And if it is one option for you all, if you don't agree with the addition of this language, is simply to amend it without a Section E and we take it out.
Believe the mayor has the floor. Okay.
I just grapple with this because I have concerns about it too. I think about it through the lens of having served on zoning commission, where this was a really, really important restriction because you could not, when you were hearing a case, say, oh, but remember that other case with that other person? And if you start bringing that up again, it's really, it can make you legally liable for almost retrying a case. So I don't think we have that sense of urgency here. But I guess I still struggle a little bit with what maybe if you said it again, I would understand it, but the difference between what this allows and what it doesn't allow is just a little bit fuzzy to me still.
The intent was to not expand the scope of discussion to rehashing prior decisions. And it's not an uncommon provision in rules of governance.
The mayor has the floor.
I'll echo the comments. I understand the intent. And, I read the intent in Section D there. I mean, the discussion up here should be to advance the deliberations. And when we're bringing up, relitigating the past, it doesn't help, especially if the issue is not germane. I do think, though, it sends the wrong message if we were to say that we're prohibiting past criticism or speaking adversely generally. So I would suggest that we strike item E and we're hashing it out up here, but I understand the intent again of item E, but I see that already captured in item D without sending that message.
That's fine. Dr. Mackey?
I kind of agree, but I kind of agree and disagree with this item for this simple reason. We're up here representing this community, and this county, and this area, and CPS Energy. When we making our decision, we read and we look at it and we make the best decision. But I don't think it's in the best scope for an individual, board member to sit up here, and I'm not picking out any board member to rehash something and under the breath say y'all were stupid or y'all were idiots for doing stuff like that. I don't appreciate stuff like that. And I've been very quiet about that kind of stuff, but I don't appreciate that. Or y'all don't know what y'all doing. Adversely, these are comments that if y'all change this, I'm not gonna take this lightly if I come and glued on that because y'all approve this. I don't mind talking about stuff and rehashing, but I don't wanna be called an idiot in making a decision. I don't wanna be called that again. This board, the rest of your board members said, I don't want that done anymore. I've heard it too much, Mayor, and I don't want that done anymore. Because I'm gonna come unglued and then y'all gonna say, I'm wrong. But why am I wrong when I'm called that? And I don't get upset until I'm called an idiot or stupid, I don't know what I'm doing. Then that bothers me when I read my book and I make a decision that I think is the best decision. I've heard this too much in my 20-something years and being a CEO and listening to board members say stuff like that. So I don't mind the changes if people do it right and say, I disagree and these are the reasons, and let us, but don't comment on the rest of the board members because you disagree with it. And don't do that. That's what I look at this for. And I read this 2 or 3 times and trying to figure out how to make that work, And I haven't discussed it with anybody, but I wanted to share this how I feel. I don't want to be talked down. I don't want to be talked down at a board meeting because when you say the rest of the board, you're talking down on us. I wouldn't talk down on y'all or the other management. My job is to find a way to make this work, whatever we're doing, Mayor. That's how I feel. I can agree, but then you're going to understand where I come from if I heard that again.
Okay. Yes, sir. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no,
Mayor.
I'd like to concur with what you're saying. And, I'm reading these amendments for the first time, and I generally agree, that we're trying to put a little order around our deliberations. The other aspect of this, just in totality, is the fact that the chair is the presiding authority over these deliberations. And if at any time trustees are directing their comments toward another member or indirectly toward another member in criticism, that can be immediately governed by the chair. And so, I view the rules of order written in here with explicit reference to Roberts to control for those sorts of things that I agree are out of hand. So my point in item E, to concur with Dr. Romero, is just that I don't think the intent of any of this is to suggest to any of us that we can't bring up items that are relevant to our deliberations now, even if we don't agree with something that has occurred. So I don't think that item E sends that message. It rather says that we aren't allowed to criticize the utility that we are supposed to be governing. That's not our intent here. So in my view, we accomplished what you're saying we should, which I agree, through the role of the chair and the other language in the rules of order. But I think this item E is unnecessary.
I would suggest that we see.
I want to see Mr. Steen wanted to speak. Go ahead, Mr. Steen.
So I think I think it's a good idea to put the core values and principles. I don't think we're doing it the right way. And Madam Chair, you could make that a productive exercise. There are many organizations that have meetings where they discuss core values and principles, and the discussion is very valuable. You learn from it, and you develop a document. But it is, it doesn't belong in rules of conduct. And I gave the example. I looked through the index of the 700-page Robert Rules of Order just to see if anything in there addresses core values and principles. It doesn't. So good idea, but wrong placement.
Real quick question. How long has this been in place prior to the changes we're recommending?
I don't know the answer to that question, but
That was 2011.
How long are the rules of conduct? How long have they been in place?
2011,
It came
correct?
in with Dr. Mackey.
No, I think it was prior to Dr. Mackey.
No, it was Dr. Mackey.
Dr. Mackey.
Right at the beginning of your chairmanship.
Well, I think on the great discussion we've had, I believe we've already voted. What I would recommend,
haven't voted.
what I would recommend is we vote with striking out E.
Trustee Dr. Mackey, having made the motion to approve, would you accept the motion to approve amended to remove Article 7,
E.
C1E, thus making the current Article 7, C1F the new?
Okay, repeat that again now.
We would remove the current section E, and that would
What?
mean,
E.
I'm sorry, Article 7, Section C1E, which is on page
C1?
C1E.
Oh, C1E, okay.
So we would remove that subpart E that we've been discussing, resulting in the one that is currently lettered sub F is the new sub E. So that would you accept the friendly amendment to your motion so that the motion to approve is as we have just discussed, removal of E, renaming of F to E?
Yes.
Well, before we vote, Dr. Romero has a comment.
I just want to circle back to something Trustee Steen said. I don't have any objection to voting on this with the core values and principles as part of it, but I do like, that light is so bright.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I do like your suggestion that it would be a good topic for us to have in a work session where the trustees as a group could just go over these core values and principles. It's something we could change in the future if we ever wanted to. I don't have a problem with it being here, and I don't have a problem with how it reads right now, but I think that would be a good way for us to, I don't know, just have a good session to talk about.
And what I would recommend, just like we just recently had a strategic session, that could be part of,
Yeah,
we
something
review it. Yeah, I have no, again, I think it's important. I think if anything, as your chair, I'm trying to demonstrate the need to revise items because we have different points of view. Things don't stay stagnant, our objectives change, and so I have no, again, issues with revisiting this and further discussing it. And again, feel free to add any of these items on the agenda to further discuss as well. So on that note, if we can go ahead and vote with the friendly amendment.
Trustee Dr. Mackey?
Yes.
Trustee Steen?
No.
Mayor?
Yes.
Vice Chair Romero?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you for the dialogue. Okay, so the next item is item number 9, CPS Energy and the 88th Legislature. For here to discuss with us is Ms. Kathy Garcia and Ms. Carrie Meyer. The floor is yours.
Here we go. Try again. Chair Gonzalez and members of the board, in a few minutes, you will hear from Carrie Meyer, our Director of Federal and State Relations. It's been a little bit since she's been before this board. Carrie has now been with CPS Energy for 8.5 years, and she leads our advocacy efforts at both the state and federal levels. Before coming to CPS Energy, Carrie held various positions at the state capitol, including working for Speaker Joe Strauss. So before Carrie offers her recap for the legislative session, I wanted to offer the following perspectives. We had a successful session, and that is despite the Texas legislature becoming much more intrusive into our operations and decision-makings of local government. Often we have a goal of concluding a session by having no harm done, and we can successfully say that we had no harm done to this utility. We can also say that CPS Energy played an active role in shaping and passing legislation that was important to this utility and important to this community. That success stems from having an active, engaged, and supportive board, as well as strong relationships with our city owner and our Bexar County delegation. Chair Gonzalez and Vice Chair Dr. Romero both came to the Capitol, participated in the process, had visits with our delegation, as did our mayor, our city manager, and on a frequent basis, our president and CEO. We also remain a trusted resource. We are respected. CPS Energy is respected at the Capitol, and our voice matters. It's worth noting that we were the only municipally owned utility invited to participate in stakeholder conversations with leaders in the Texas House to vet, discuss, review market design proposals, the only municipal utility in the room. I also want to add that we fostered a very robust internal and external engagement process through the legislative session that will also transcend over the next 18 months leading up to the next session. So with that, you will hear much more about this in Carrie's remarks, but I appreciate having the opportunity to offer those perspectives. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carrie. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. Before I get started, I just want to say that I probably needed a step stool. And I might be the one up here speaking, but I'm doing so on behalf of a really capable and engaged team. I have one of my team members here today. I'm going to make him stand up. I've got Christian Kruger. He's our manager. We have two more team members in Austin, Ken Whalen, our public policy communications manager, Marie Stoner, our project coordinator. And then I'd also like to give a shout out to David Key and our energy market policy team. With all of the work that we'll be going through here in a moment on market design, we really leaned on his team a lot and roped them into a lot of capital activity this year. So for today's presentation, we're going to focus on legislation of greatest impact to CPS Energy, how we worked with others to ensure a successful session, and what next steps will lie ahead as these passed bills move into the implementation and regulatory rulemaking phases. As a refresher, we appreciate the board's support and approval of our 3 pillars to our public policy agenda at your January meeting. Up here on the screen, we have those pillars: customer affordability and impacts, utility governance, reliability, and resiliency. For today's presentation, I'm going to focus on bills under the second 2 pillars. However, with the understanding that the first pillar on customer affordability and impacts was woven into every single decision we made at the Capitol, that was first and foremost in everything we did at the Capitol, was thinking about and representing what impacted, what financial and other impacts would occur to our customers based on the various proposals. So moving to the utility governance topic, bills seeking to alter the municipally owned utility business model are not uncommon each session. You all have seen us come and talk to you about some in previous sessions. However, the biggest difference this session was we saw a significant number of bills that would have had a severe and detrimental impact to all 72 municipally owned utilities in the state. These bills, taken in total, sought to give the Public Utility Commission types of oversight over municipally owned utilities' general fund transfer, and in some cases would have given the commission the ability to either require withholding all or part of an MOU's general fund transfer if, for example, the commission deemed that our vegetation management program wasn't funded properly. Or in another example, if the commission believed that a general fund transfer would cause the MOU to require a rate increase or enter into a financial deficit. We actively oppose these bills, and in coordination with the city, with city leadership, the mayor, our state trade association, Texas Public Power Association, and others, we were able to successfully educate our elected officials on the soundness of our programs and the structure and efficacy of our financial decisions. I'll note here, though, that while none of these bills passed We expect that legislators, like Kathy mentioned, are going to continue to want to take a deep dive into more of the business type operations or decisions that we make. And we expect that continued interest in how the general fund transfer operates will be one of those topics. So we will be planning to continue to educate and inform offices throughout the interim leading up to next session. Moving now to reliability and resiliency. Legislators sought to increase reliability and resiliency of the grid and the market by trying to find ways to incentivize new dispatchable or on-demand generation. Last fall, you all likely recall that the Public Utility Commission commissioned a third-party study for ideas, and they ultimately adopted a structure called the Performance Credit Mechanism as a way, from their perspective, to incentivize increased reliability and new dispatchable generation. After they voted on the PCM, which is what I'll refer to it going forward, the legislature asked them, please hold, don't take any further action. We want to take a look at this performance credit mechanism and decide, as well as think about our own ideas for how we might address incentivizing new dispatchable generation. There were numerous proposals filed on this topic and on ERCOT market design more broadly. Some that were similar or identical to each other, some that had overlapping concepts, and sometimes there were leading bills that had concepts that were in opposition to one another. But after several months of negotiations, stakeholder work, public hearings, 4 proposals ultimately passed that, taken together, we have them listed up here. Taken together, these bills will allow the performance credit mechanism work to continue at the PUC with guardrails in place and consumer protections such as cost impact studies, as well as the creation of new reliability services in the market. We also have here, so that's, apologies, that's HB 1500. So that was originally just the sunset bill for the Public Utility Commission, the Office of Public Utility Counsel, and ERCOT to extend it for 6 years. But ultimately, HB 1500 was amended to include all of the market design proposals that the legislature coalesced around. The next 2 that we have there, SB 2627 and SJR 93, those create what's called the Powering Texas Forward Act, a fund of roughly $10 million to help electric generators build or improve dispatchable or on-demand generation facilities. The reason it has a joint resolution tied to it is because it is seeking to use that $10 billion from state money and create a new fund, and therefore it needs to go to the voters in November for their approval. Assuming that it is approved by voters, then the PUC will be required to stand up the program, the requirements for applying, and be required to open up and begin accepting applications no later than June 1 of 2024, and then be required to approve, deny loans, and disperse funds by the end of 2025. And then the other one I have up here just for general awareness is HB 5. You all may be familiar that the previous economic development tax incentives in the state, which were called Chapter 313 tax credits, expired, and the legislature passed HB 5 as their new economic development incentives package. And there is some language in there about certain tax incentives for those that want to build or modify dispatchable generation facilities. And as we have done there on the bottom, going back to the first pillar of our public policy agenda, we assessed every one of these proposals through the lens of what is the intended benefit, what is it seeking to do we agree that it will do the things it's proposing to do, and at the end of the day, what's going to be the associated cost to our utility and customers, and do we think the cost outweighs, or the benefits and the costs balance out. Diving a little bit deeper into some of the main concepts in the bills that passed, all of these up here are items that we actively participated in negotiations on. I'll note this is not an all-inclusive list. HB 1500 alone ended up being 50 pages long, so we could be here all day if we wanted to. But in the interest of time, we're going to stick to the highest level items. And at the end of the day, I will say that we believe that everything that ultimately passed is workable, and many of these items will need to go through some sort of rulemaking or stakeholder engagement process at the Public Utility Commission or ERCOT to be implemented, and we intend to be there to be continuing to actively engage on behalf of our priorities from the legislative discussions. I have a few items here in green, and we have them labeled as green because we view these as items these are items that we supported and that we believe passed in a manner that we had advocated for. As I mentioned earlier, the legislature, just like CPS Energy, was very focused on making sure that there were guardrails and consumer protections to the performance credit mechanism. They wanted to make sure that the PUC was thinking of the customers first as they continue to develop the PCM. So what they ended up passing were some consumer protections, and that is inclusive of studies on the cost benefits of not only the PCM, but of some other reliability and ancillary services. So basically telling the PUC and ERCOT, we want you to look in the cost and the impact of these different programs and determine if it's still going to, as they called it, result in a net savings to consumers. We were supportive of that. We believe continued study is the right approach. Another area of study that we will be seeing as part of these programs is on cost allocation methodology. I had to really educate myself on some of that this session, but we advocated for the PCM and other programs being allocated the way it's currently done in the market, which is on a load ratio share basis. At one point, the legislature was considering a proposal that would have created an entirely new methodology that would have allocated costs based on whether you were dispatchable, non-dispatchable, or load-serving entity. We opposed that methodology because we believed that the way that those costs would end up getting passed on to customers would have unfairly been spread out across the customer base. So the PUC and ERCOT are going to have to study which is going to be the best cost allocation methodology, the current way that it's done or possibly a new way to do it. And we have next after the, or excuse me, and then the last item on green, just as I mentioned before, all of these things are going to continue to require stakeholder input, continued opportunities for us to continue our message forward, and we will be engaging in all of those and keeping you all updated. We have a couple of items in yellow, and these are items that were either concepts or language that we didn't entirely support, but again, no detrimental impacts to CPS Energy. One of the most contentious topics related to the performance credit mechanism was whether or not there should be a cap on the cost of the program. HB 1500 ultimately passed with a $1 billion cap or limit on the total financial impact that the program can have on the market. We at CPS Energy, we support the efforts for new generation, and we felt that placing a cap firmly in statute, the way the bill does, would be inflexible and limiting to the changing dynamics of the market. We instead thought that a better approach would be supporting a price cap that could be set up by the PUC that could focus on the reliability needs that we have today and could be flexible enough to allow for adjustments and growth as the grid of the future and the market continue to grow. However, the legislature felt very strongly that they needed a statutory cap to protect consumers, so we do have that that did pass in the legislation. And then secondly, on the $10 billion loan and grant program to incentivize the building of new on-demand generation, the bill is SB 2627 sets forth what parameters must be included within the program, how the PUC needs to set it up, and then the JR, like I mentioned before, is the actual approval of the fund itself. We have it in yellow there because it is still pending voter approval, and this was a bill that was filed late in session, very quickly moved through the process, and we ourselves are still determining whether we think it's going to yield the intended benefits and really move us forward in a positive way. The one item that I have there in red, it's inclusive of items that we opposed or about which we expressed concerns during the legislative process because of their unintended consequences. A couple of those examples being one that non-dispatchable generation sources are excluded from the performance credit mechanism under HB 1500. We believe that every megawatt counts, and if you can prove that you can perform and participate in the program, regardless of your source, you should be given the opportunity. Another example is, it was a standalone bill, but it was at the end of the day swept into HB 1500, and it requires the PUC to set a cap on the interconnection costs of new generation facilities. The stated intent is to minimize costs to consumers because those costs are passed along to consumers. But we and others felt that it unfairly would penalize, so excuse me, PUC sets a cap. If a generating source goes over that cap, they have to pay the amount over the cap. And in our opinion, that is going to negatively impact renewable resources as well as other resources that for a variety of reasons can't site close to load. Maybe there's environmental reasons or urban land use reasons why they can't do that. But I will note, since the PUC has to set it up, this is one item that will go through a rulemaking for them to determine how do they create the cap, what should that be set at, and we plan to participate in those discussions. Again, here, these are the main highlights. There's a lot of work left to do that we look forward to coming to you all to continue to keep the dialogue going. But these are the main areas in terms of reliability and resiliency.
Thank you. That's a lot of information. Very good. Thank you for fighting for us at the state of Texas, the capital.
I have a couple more slides, but if we're over time, I can.
I know I have a bunch of questions, so sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'll be quick then. So we, as Kathy mentioned, we had a robust internal and external process. We engaged over 15 internal subject matter experts. They helped us look at every bill to say, what's the operational impact, what's the financial impact, and the legal impact to our organization and our community. We also coordinated with numerous community and industry partners, such as our colleagues at the city and across the community. We registered official positions on bills. We had Rudy come up and testify. The one thing that I do want to highlight is that although we tracked fewer bills this session, those bills that we tracked were longer, they were more complex, and they were constantly churning and shifting in ways we had not previously experienced. So, for example, instead of a 2 to 3 page bill we may have had in a previous session, bills were regularly 40 to 50 pages, and we would have a 2 to 3 day turnaround time on them. Here, I have just some examples of areas where we officially registered positions. I won't go through these, but on a good story note, I want to highlight HB 898 that was signed by the governor. It increases the penalties for violating the move over slowdown law, which we worked to get utility workers added to a couple sessions back. So happy to say that that worked its way through. As I mentioned, Rudy came up and testified in support of SB 2012, which at the time of his testimony, it was the leading bill on energy market design topics. And a lot of the elements that I've previously discussed that we supported were in 2012 and ultimately made it into the final version of 1500. And then real quick on next steps, we have an internal post-session compliance process. Our team coordinates with legal compliance and the relevant business units to ensure any bills that have immediate action that's needed on our part or policy changes, making sure that we're passing the torch and that CPS Energy is ready to make those changes when the effective date occurs. As I mentioned, regulatory rulemakings, predominantly we're going to be having our hands full with David Key and his team and others at the PUC and ERCOT, but there will be activities at the other regulatory entities that have jurisdiction over our various processes. Special sessions, we are 2 days away from the first special session ending on property taxes. The governor, as you all have probably seen in the news, says he intends to call several. But I will note that in his announcement back in the end of May, he included what was done on the electric market and the grid as a success. And so at this time, knock on wood, they feel like they have done what they've needed to do to now take it to the next level of the regulatory implementation. So, but we will keep an eye out, just in case anything changes, but at this point, we don't anticipate being a subject of a special session.
Again, thank you very much,
That's all we
Carrie.
have,
Ms.
unless there are any
Ms. Meyer.
questions.
Does the board have any questions or comments? Mr. Steen?
Well, just to thank you for your presentation today and thank Kathy Garcia, and you all do worthwhile work for us up in Austin. We appreciate it. I talked to you earlier about my concern about customer affordability and impacts. As you know, as of April 30th, 2023, 207,000 of our customers are struggling to pay their monthly bills. And management is planning to seek approval from this board and the city council of a 5.5% base rate increase in a little over 6 months. So for people listening in, I'm asking this very broadly, was any legislation enacted that will have the effect of increasing our customers' monthly bills?
That is a great question. I think that at this point is to be determined because things that were passed, say relative to the performance credit mechanism and others, are still in conceptual form. And so going through the implementation phase and the regulatory rulemaking phase will inform those decisions. So at this point, that is still something that's in the works.
When might we get some idea about that as we're facing these decisions we have in the coming months about we're thinking about impact on the customer locally, and then something can happen in Austin that has an impact that we've got to be thinking about.
I will see maybe if David has any idea on the timeline at ERCOT or the Public Utility Commission. They do have some timelines by which they need to do some things, and in other areas, they don't have timelines, and it's up to when they want to prioritize.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Out of the slide 6, the items that were in yellow, probably the biggest concern that I have right now is the performance credit mechanism and how that will impact not only our consumers, but mainly our ability to operate on the market and to respond to any consequences that come from that. It's more than just the impact to affordability to the ratepayers. It's really about our operations.
Yeah.
So I want more information on that.
Let me just, kind of lay out expectations here. PUC is going to be in this between now and the next legislative session and may not even have it all figured out between now and then. So as they're creating changes to the market, there's conversation about whether or not the PUC is going to stick with the PCM or come up with some PCM light. All that will do is inform the incentives that will incentivize new generation from being built. And then that takes years. So how that factors in to the price that gets spread over the entire ERCOT market, again, to Carrie's point, remains to be seen. Every year, ERCOT changes the administrative fee. Our customers pay 7% of that because we're 7% of the market. So, there's nothing in the ERCOT market that's going down.
So is it
regulatory
fair to
fees
say,
will continue to increase marginally given our kind of load ratio share.
so is it fair to say that whether we do a rate increase or not, the cost will still go up for the end user?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any further questions on that. Colleagues, does anybody have any comments? Go ahead.
I just wanted to also thank y'all for what you do. I got to see it in person when we were up there, and I just know this is an incredible amount of work, and it's really important to have just a great team up there, and I know that you all are. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, and we appreciate your support and welcome you all anytime you want to come up and do it again with us.
Thank you. I do have one last request. Can you, Rudy, really elaborate a little bit more about the key role that you played on Senate Bill 2012, the design market?
Well, once a legislative person, somewhat always a legislative person, I've got a really great relationship with the chairman of State Affairs in the House, Chairman Todd Hunter from Corpus Christi, which is my hometown. And, he was interested in our perspective on everything that happened this session. So whether it was informal conversations we had while I was in Austin or the formal work we did during the committee hearings. Again, our team does a great job and, gets me in an opportunity to add value where the CEO should add value. And so I was up there frequently having conversations with our delegation to make sure that they understood kind of where things were in the process. They wanted to make sure the votes they were taking on the floor were consistent with what was good for CPS Energy. But I feel good that we were in the rooms that we needed to be in, helping shape policy.
You. And I would just recommend if we could have, as some of these are being implemented, if we could make sure we add it to the agenda for an update to our colleagues. I think this is going to be a really crucial time as we're trying to redesign the future of how we're going to keep things resilient and affordable for our customers. And so this information, receiving timely feedback would be crucial to those decision making. So thank you again. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and move to 10, which is the 2024 quarterly performance update. Corey Korinsky, and then we follow Corey will be Ms. Deanne Hardwick.
All right, thank you, Chair Gonzalez. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, trustees. So as you mentioned, I'll speak briefly at the beginning here, giving a financial update, and then hand it over to Deanna to talk about the accounts receivable situation that we continue to track and update the board and community on. So the headlines for the first quarter, headline number one is it's only the first quarter. So we're only 3 months into the year. As you know, that's the tail end of winter and our shoulder months. Generally speaking, I think some of the things that stand out is our non-fuel revenue, generally on track and in line with forecasts. The thing that stands out the most really is what fuel costs have done. We see natural gas come off significantly over that first quarter and continue to stay that way. So in terms of both year-to-date numbers, you see fuel revenue down, but that's ultimately good for our customers because that's less that has to get passed through on their bills. And that's my note as you kind of look forward for the balance of the year relative to fuel. Other things, looking to be relatively consistent with the forecast that we had put out there in terms of our repair and replacement contributions, which is our affectionately known as R&R account, our forced savings account. That's a measurement of the cash that goes into our savings account to support our capital plan. And of course, our financial metrics, we think at this point are still kind of in line with those original forecasts. Last month, or I guess last quarter, last presentation, I shared with you an illustration to show how the flow of funds works. And just as a reminder, this view is a view of how revenue is applied to expenses in prioritized order, which is laid out in our bond ordinance. And so that's the governance really of how we kind of measure where dollars go. Again, this is not something you find in your accounting class or finance class in school, but really just outlined in our governance structure. And it's worth noting again that the way the prioritized order is around, very simply, as you can see on the slide, operating expenses first and foremost must be funded with revenue. And then second in priority is our debt service. So this is the mortgage payment on our debt. Third after that, it says capital funding. That's really our forced savings that laid out in our ordinance to ensure that we put dollars away to the R&R. And then fourth in that sequence is city payment, and then anything remainder will go to the additional R&R. So again, as I mentioned earlier, year to date, generally on track. The next two slides are just our traditional view of both the flow of funds and net income in kind of tabular format. Called out highlights on the right-hand side of the next two slides, but what stands out is what I've already mentioned relative to lower fuel costs. We did see electric sales down a little bit overall, system-wide, but again, first quarter. The other thing that we note there is that we are active in the wholesale market. Wholesale sales for the first quarter were down a little bit relative to our forecast. We think they'll come in perhaps close to around $50 million net of fuel, which is still a decent target for now. But again, a lot will be determined over the course of the year. And just generally as a reminder, we are a weather-driven business. And so as we go through the summer months, that's where we make a large share of our revenue. And to really have a good pulse on how we're doing typically comes near the end of that summer season into the early fall when the numbers get solidified. Other things to call out, this is just the net income view year-to-date, so this is your traditional view. You can see at the very bottom, year-to-date, our actuals and net income are a little better than forecasted. A lot of different, puts and takes we were talking about. We have seen non-operating revenue, seen a little lift there, mostly from our interest revenue. So these are, short-term investments that we hold, and we're seeing some additional returns on that, so that's good. The variance in between our operation and maintenance budget, we show that we're under budget, but a lot of this is timing issues in terms of spend, out of the plants, and we expect to catch up with those dollars as we go through the rest of the year. The last slide I have before I hand it over to Deanna is really just a view of our financial metrics that we've talked about. I'll just say a couple of things on this as a reminder. We use these three financial metrics as a proxy for our financial health, just to communicate to ourselves, the board, and the community. But in reality, the rating agencies all have their own unique, nuanced ways of looking at financial health. And so, as an example, while we look at adjusted debt service coverage ratio and have our calculation, the model that most closely shadows is Moody's methodology on this. S&P and Fitch look at it differently and have different targets. So we think this still serves us as a good proxy. We've had it for decades. And as an example, debt capitalization ratio, the version and model that we use most closely shadows Standard & Poor's. And as in contrast, Moody has something a little bit different called the debt ratio. Different puts and takes. We still monitor all of these metrics, even though we don't share them at the board meeting because they're all relevant. And interesting to note, days cash on hand. While we've tracked it and it's a more restrictive measure, both Moody's and S&P strongly weight days liquidity on hand, which we track as well, with our financial services team. And for both of them, over 250 days and 270 days respectively is the highest score you can get for them. And that's a measure of both your cash available and your unused credit. And for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been well north of that 250, 270 range for them. So, we're getting extra lift from that. All said, we haven't changed the projections that you see on the slide here that we provided at the beginning of this year. We'll continue every quarter as we do to update them the way we see the year panning out. But again, the next, decade or so is going to be, a time of heavy investment for this organization. And so we're going to do our best to manage the metrics as best we can at the levels that we've been at. But the one thing that we've committed to is ensuring that we don't tie up working capital that can be deployed in making these investments just for the sake of chasing a target. In instances where we won't get extra credit, so to speak, there's no need to have working capital hanging around and not being deployed to help our customers. So with that said, in the appendix, there's a broader view of enterprise metrics as well, but the next slide is going to be on accounts receivable, and I'll turn it over to Deanna.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, members of the board and chair, for the opportunity to come. I know on top of doing a monthly update, we want to highlight where we're at for the quarter. And as Mr. Steen, as you mentioned, we are at 207,000 accounts of customers that are past due. And we're happy to say that that's down to 189 million. I believe at the end of October, we were seeing upwards of 207 million. So we've continued on the path that we committed to you as the board on what we were doing for our collections, and at the same time doing everything we can to help our community. And the biggest thing I want to call out is that we have been able to increase the number of accounts enrolled in installment plans to 74,000 accounts, and that represents over $100 million. We were around $70 million at the same time in October, and so we've been able to increase the dollars enrolled by about 30%, and at the same time doing it with compassion and support for our community. So you see our team members up here, and they're out in the community. In the month of April, we had over 100 engagements. That represents more than 3 engagements a day that our teams are out in the community trying to connect customers with assistance. And through the end of April, that was $6 million, nearly $6 million. And we're continuing to review and push and find any other opportunities that we can Chair Gonzalez, you had mentioned the restrictions that we see as part of our terms and conditions, and it's balancing out the safety for our community as well as our financial stability. So whenever, according to our terms and conditions, which is consistent with the PUC, as you had mentioned, we do not disconnect on days that we have what's declared as a extreme weather emergency. And per the definition, that's on days that we have a heat advisory, not just in Bexar County, but it's in any of the counties that are part of CPS Energy's territory. We do not disconnect on those days or the 2 days following the completion of the heat advisory. So our teams have to monitor that. But at the same time, we do not back off of other collection activities. If a customer account was eligible for disconnection, say today, instead of just waiting until that account's eligible for disconnection, we're going to send them a text message or whatever their preferred method of communication is to say, hey, this is one last opportunity. Whenever we can resume disconnections, we will, and your account will be disconnected. But to prevent that, please contact us, and we will help find solutions, as we've been able to demonstrate by the 50% of what's past due in enrolled accounts. So our teams are continuing to find the right partners, find as many dollars out there, and then find solutions for our customers. And we'll continue to do that through the summer, working with our terms and conditions. And that's all that we have. We'll take any questions that you may have.
Any colleagues with questions? Mr. Steen?
Ms. Hardwick, we're dealing with April 30th, 2023 numbers, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's nearly 2 months ago. We mentioned the 207,000 customers. It was a little bit, but I think that's 18% of our total customers are past due.
Yes, it's less than 20%. Yes, sir, that's consistent.
But as of 4/30/23, what percentage of our residential customers were past due?
It was a total of 187,000 customers, that were past due.
But do you have the percentage of residential customers?
I don't, but I can follow up with you on that.
All right. And you don't have more current information?
We're finalizing the information, and hopefully we'll be able to get that communication out as we normally do in the board communication, hopefully this week.
All right.
We are continuing to see the same trend, just looking at preliminary information.
All right. And then when you last formally reported to this board, I believe it was our February 27th meeting, you showed us a very helpful chart, and it was entitled Receivables and Disconnection Trend, and then subtitled Account Receivable and Disconnection Trend by Aging Bucket. And the as-of date on that chart was 1/31/23, and you know what I'm referring to,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And are you continuing to produce that chart?
Yes, sir. We monitor everything that we had been showing to you. We continue to review on through our monthly reporting.
All right, and so back to the one that we saw on February 27th, you noted at the bottom, quote, we are continuing our increased collection efforts with past due amounts trending positively for the third month in a row, close quote. Again, that was as of 1/31/23. Has that positive trend continued for the months of February, March, April, and May?
Yes, sir.
Good, all right. And then I think you've told us what you're trying to do to alleviate the problem. Is anything new that we need to know about?
The biggest thing is we have solutions, right? So we will continue to do outreach in the community. We want to help show that there are ways to save. We have mechanisms. We talked through them at the RAC and had an opportunity for customers to be able to call us and get signed up for high bill alerts. So before that bill gets too big, a customer can get an alert. So the biggest thing we can ask is just for, if you have an opportunity to go in front of our community or speak to any customers, the biggest thing I can ask is contact us. Call us, email us. Let us know. Our community outreach team will come knock on a door for those who can't make it into our walk-in centers. So wherever we can, we just want to connect and find a solution.
And so this is for Mr. Garza. This is what I'd call an intractable situation, and it continues to go on. And I ask this respectfully, what's your end game?
Our end game is to get our customers to pay their bill. That's what our end game is. Not sure I understand beyond that what
Well,
what
you
you're
know, at our September 26, 2022 board meeting, that was 10 months ago, you know, you were talking about making substantial progress, and I don't feel like we're making substantial progress. So do you just keep on keeping on, or do you have other thoughts in mind about what to do about this?
I'll reiterate, we didn't get into this, you know, overnight, and we're not going to get out of it. About the only other thing that, you know, that's on the horizon is that last rate case conversation, you know, the city wanted us to get back to disconnects, so we knew exactly what the situation was. We're there now. So this next rate case conversation, whenever that happens, and, you know, we haven't said, you know, when that's going to happen. There's a process that we'll follow to reconcile where we are, that we'll start the process on here towards the end of the summer. Bad debt expense will be an item that is going to have to be addressed, because now we know that it's higher than what it's been historically. So we will have that conversation with the city, and that will go through the process as it should. But we teed this up last time, and the city was reluctant to prospectively put anything in our rate base for bad debt expense until we had gotten back to disconnects. Now we know, you know, kind of have a clear picture of that. So that will be part of the narrative this go round. That's the only other answer I have for you, sir, that's different from what we've been talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Yeah, I know you've been working on this, but what I see is it won't be long before you're coming back to us. You come to us first, and then you go to the city council on this base rate increase, and I think it's going to be it's a more difficult conversation when you have and I'm going to say it's 20% of our residential customers. Is that fair?
Probably about right.
So when you've got 20% of our residential customers are struggling with their bills, and I think it's going to be very difficult.
Mr. Steen, we've got a business to run, and my job is to ensure the fiduciary, you know, responsibility that we have to, you know, to make the expenses, you know, match the revenues, no more, no less. And, you know, we'll have a thoughtful conversation when that time comes.
I do have a question and a concern. Knowing that it's summer, two things will come out of that: increased revenue, and also more increased liabilities, potentially the same individuals, the same families that are struggling right now, to address the ongoing conversation we just had. Is there going to be a way to distinguish, like through the system of how we're tracking, whether it's a customer relationship management system or a billing system, that tags that it's the same customer?
Unfortunately.
Do you know what because what's going to happen is when we start reporting more, it could be the same individual that's already on a payment plan that happens not to fall back because of summer heat. So I am a little concerned about how we're going to track that and report it, because it will only impact, I mean, there's two impacts here. The impact that we're discussing, and then how we're going to treat that, how we're going to count that impact. Because then it's like almost, I don't like to say the word double dipping, but it's still the same portfolio that would only make it skew it in another direction.
Right, so the way, we do have limitations to get to the exact customer, but one way we are able to track is by what that average past due amount is. And so we can find a way to help provide that information to you as the board, to show that if your account's been past due for a year and you've been making an installment plan, that's still part of our dollars, but your past due amount might continue, your average past due might continue to grow. So we do have a trend that we can show there, and then as we continue to build out our new systems through our ERP and Evolve work, we'll continue to put in requirements like that to be able to speak directly to information about customers' experiences and who needs the most assistance and what the best way is to
what I would maybe suggest, just knowing going into the summer and just getting a preview what summer's going to look like, maybe potentially, because what you might find also is a new group that never before was on disconnect. So maybe just what you just stated on top of now the individuals, the families or individuals that may be impacted by the added temperatures that we're experiencing. And so they have always paid their bills, but for whatever reason, things happen. And so I know this is tough. I know that we have to balance out a balanced budget as well as doing right by our citizens. And so I just want to remind everyone that our foremost responsibility is to citizens, and that is that we don't have a liability of a death just because we want to wipe out or cut here and cut there just because we want to balance our budget. We have a responsibility to citizens to keep them safe. And we also have a responsibility to meet our fiduciary responsibilities. So we have to, again, find ways to do those things. So again, thank you for the presentation, and thank you always, Mr. Steen, for your comments. But I believe we have a question by Dr. Romero. Go.
I just wanted to put this in perspective a little bit in context. So I think you had told us before that our delinquent accounts are roughly comparable to other utilities across the country. So in terms of, because I think this is helpful, and I think this is a positive direction of getting people enrolled in installment plans, and you're saying more than 50% of delinquencies are now in installment plans. How does that compare in context to other utilities?
We don't have that information yet. We have pushed that out through our benchmarking companies to see if we can find out. One other piece of good news that we are seeing that we can benchmark is whenever I was here, I believe in October, I was talking about the success rate of our installment plans. At that time, it was less than 50%. We are now seeing about a 60% success rate. So customers are getting on an installment plan that will work, and they can start paying down their past due as well as make sense of their current bill. So we'll see if we can get that information and show what we can do to benchmark.
Or maybe you could just add it to the slides. Again, that's just another indicator of the hard work that's going on. Again, as mentioned, this is not something that just happened overnight. This was about 2 years of not addressing that, and you don't do that overnight.
Well, one benchmark we do know,
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair, is, we work probably on a longer horizon to allow customers to get caught up than most utilities. I mean, in the retail market in Texas, you might get 3 to 6 months to get caught up. Here, because customers were, we were off the disconnects for years, we're working up to 18 to, 20 months in some cases, where we're trying to give customers a payment plan they can stick to. That's the most important thing in my mind, is to put them on a plan they can afford so that we can keep them, working towards cutting that balance down. Because, if you create a payment plan that's unrealistic, then they're just going to get right back off of it, and it's going to take even more churn, which creates cost for us, every time somebody's got to call in. So you got to balance, kind of all of those dynamics and try to figure out a way to put customers in the best position to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the 2024 quarterly performance update, both to you, Corey and Deanna. Thank you very much for the work. The next item on the agenda is item number 11, which is the CEO recognition.
While our folks are coming in, today we're going to be recognizing our first quarter Core Value Award honorees. First and foremost, I want to emphasize the importance of our core values. They serve as guiding principles that shape our culture. They drive our decision-making. They enable us to deliver exceptional service to our community, which is what we strive for each and every day. Our core values, which are safety and well-being, transparency, working with the one team as a one-team mindset, accountable, excellence, and integrity. They define who we are as an organization, and they're the heart of everything that we do. We created this recognition program to highlight individuals and groups whose actions are outstanding examples of core values in action and in alignment with our Vision 2027 strategy. So we want to celebrate their accomplishments and share these stories with our organization and with you. These individuals we are honoring today consistently model our core values, earning the trust and respect of their colleagues, which is why their peers and colleagues nominated them. They consistently go above and beyond expectations, and they deliver outstanding results. So the folks that are in this room, I'm not going to read them out by name, but they represent areas of our energy management, maintaining our Siemens energy management system, our people and culture group, customer value optimization that deal with our customers every day, enterprise risk and development, supply chain, customer value, our air quality team, our underground and integrated operations team, which manages all our underground infrastructure, audit services, which we know is hugely important to our organization: safety, community engagement, corporate responsibility, and our service desk and network operations center. I always point out the service desk because there's only like 8 of them, and they manage all of the needs of 3,500 employees. It's a phenomenally efficient organization, and they keep us connected and doing the work that we do. So with that, please help me in congratulating all of our employees who exemplify what it means to be a CPS Energy employee every day. Yes, sir.
Do you have their names?
I do. I can read them out.
I think they should hear,
right.
we should hear their names.
All I needed was a window. Thank you, sir. So Tony Lujan, just raise your hand when I call your name out. Maybe not everybody's here today. Tony Lujan, Ashley Story. Ashley? Where you at? There she is. Brenda Solano. Where's Brenda? All right. Edna Elizalde. Edward Hernandez. Catherine Lopez. Kenneth Ruiz. Michaela Mays. Okay. Stephanie Hernandez. Yvonne Haker. Joy Harris. There's Joy. Julia Martinez. Kurt Knuckles, my man Kurt. Rosemarie Aguillon. Anthony Cheney. Bernadine Lawrence. Brenda Kirk. Christina Barbosa. Christopher Wilson. Edwin Lopez. Felicia Perez. Jordan Nielsen. Mark Phillips. Nehemiah Hamby. Not here. Nicolas Arellano. Nope. Raul Chavez. Sergio Rios. There's Sergio. And Taylor and Ayu. All right. Once again, congratulations. And if we can all look this direction, we're going to take a good quick picture. And that is my recognition today, Madam Chair.
I believe we also, didn't we just recently also, weren't we recognized at the American Public Power Association? What award did you?
So we won the APPA System Achievement Award, which is 5 organizations across the country were recognized, and CPS Energy was one of them. And if I would be remiss to point out that our own chair, Jeannie Gonzalez, was also.
But that's not why I mentioned it.
No, but it happened. We
could
also
care-
received a
care-
public
as
service
matter of fact,
award.
I never like to be it. No. No, that's not, no, you shouldn't have done that. No, I'm going to sing happy birthday out loud to Dr. Trustee for embarrassing me. No, I was just really proud of that award. I think, again, it's a demonstration to the resiliency through everything we've been through. And again, I do give credit to my the former chairman's trustee, again, Steen and Mackey. And we've been through a lot this past 4 years, and to still be recognized at a national level for being an excellent organization is just a testament that the diversity in thought and even the, again, very lively discussions is what it takes to run a healthy organization. So I sincerely, again, give kudos to those of you who are on the table. And again, I love the feedback that we also get from Dr. Romero. I mean, this is what makes a great organization, that we all give 100% so that we can design a better organization. So I'm looking forward to more awards that y'all get, not me. So thank you very much on that note. So in all sincerity, item number 12, and that is the review of action items.
We have no open action items from any prior meetings, and the single action item that I took from today was a request to follow up with the percentage of residential customers with past due accounts.
Actually, there was one more, and that was feedback or on the 88th legislation. Once they start implementing the items, specifically what I'm most interested is in the PCM.
And I caught one more too, and that's to have as part of a working session, a deeper dive into the core values and guiding principles.
Yes.
I have all three of those action items on the open action item list.
Okay, then item number 13 is to adjourn the meeting for today. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. The time is 3:42. All in favor? Adjourned. We're adjourned. We don't need a vote. Just a friendly reminder, I love y'all so much. We have a public input, so for those of you who are CPS employees and want to join us, please do so, and I'm looking forward to that public input. Thank you. Okay, everybody, thank you for being with us this evening. The time is 5:30 exactly, so I want to officially call the meeting to order. Ms. Ram, confirm the quorum?
We have Vice Chair Romero, and we have yourself, ma'am. We have 2 trustees present. We do not have a quorum, but that's not needed for a public input session.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, safety message. The safety message will be provided by Ms. Alexa Sadera.
Good afternoon. We first would like to review the evacuation procedures so that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If the door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn bridges. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready.
Just for a little bit of extra time, can you tell me a little bit about obviously you stated your name, but what department do you work for? And how many years have you supported CPS?
Sure. Alexis Saavedra, I'm with Corporate Communications, Stakeholder Engagement Communications. I've been with CPS Energy now about 7-8 months. I'm losing track. It's going by fast.
Wow.
So not that long, but I come from a PR background. I was previously with the Alamo Colleges District, so happy to be here.
Well, I'm an alumni from there, Alta College. Well, thank you very much for being with us this evening, and I'm glad you're enjoying your 7-8 months.
Thank you.
Next item is public comment, and Ms. Carpenter
Yes, ma'am.
will introduce the individuals.
All right. For this meeting, we have 6 in-person speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak. William, please cue the timer. And our first speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Isabella Briceño.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here. CPS Board of Directors and person listening to me on Zoom. What makes me very happy and proud is the leadership of CPS Energy, the accomplished female board chairs, great females, Janie Gonzalez, Dr. Francine Romero, especially the CEO, understanding his responsibilities at CPS Energy. Under Mr. Rudy Garza, CPS is thriving. I can see the improvements getting done. The chairwoman is very accomplished. I'm very amazed She takes her job very serious. I heard her speak and I can understand every word she's saying and explaining it to everyone who can understand. The vice chairwoman, Dr. Francine Romero, she too takes her position serious. She as well is very knowledgeable and knows, no going around in circles, explains it well for citizens who can understand. I have met some of the persons in their leadership roles. VP Richard Medina, VP Richard Lujan, VP Maria Stratton. I know a lot of employees by name, but not all their titles. Please understand, I would like to know their titles to give them the respect they deserve. Deanna Hardwick, Unity Puente, Annabelle Villa, Eli Medina, Oscar Medina, Joy Costner, Richard De Leon. One person who I could not survive in this place is Lily Carpenter. Blaze, I missed you when you were gone. No one can replace you. CPS Energy does great teamwork under Rudy Garza. Just to let you know, I take calls 24/7, 365, no days off. As I mentioned before, Mr. Garza, you took office at CPS Energy, and I knew you understand that CPS Energy was 50 years behind in catching up. Mr. Garza, the community is behind you. We're satisfied, very satisfied with your work, and we need to add more years to your contract. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Isabella Briceño, followed by Dr. Meredith McGuire.
Good evening, board members and Rudy Garza. I'm Isabella Briceño, a ratepayer in CPS Quadrant 3 and a teacher on the south side paying almost $200 a month, all to cool my house to 78 degrees. So I am conserving energy. But I'm wondering, why is it still so expensive? That may not seem like a lot of money to some of us who make a lot of money, but to most people, it determines what groceries you can get. So I am here today to speak about the upcoming rate hike, the dissolution of the Rate Advisory Committee, and a little bit about community solar as well. As the summer wears on and the impacts of climate change forces on extreme weather conditions, I'm imploring you to not see these issues as dollar signs. Temperatures are soaring, and I was very happy to hear that you paused disconnections in this difficult time. It's going to help a lot of people. However, that, again, super helpful step. We shouldn't be denying any human being the right to cool and heat their home, the right to cook their food, and to live their life with dignity, no matter what it's like outside. That's basic quality of life. There has been an assurance that we will be moving forward with another rate hike, which will lead to more low-income people not being able to meet those demands to keep the lights on. Moreover, we ratepayers, we don't know much about this upcoming rate hike, and we need an open and transparent process for something that so greatly impacts the lives of working people. One way to accomplish this, not the one-sided town halls or surveys with leading questions, is by protecting the Rate Advisory Committee. Not only must you retain this resource for ratepayers, but it should be made more accessible by moving meetings later into the evening so more of us can participate. Anything less shows a lack of sincerity behind your people first motto. I know I'm running out of time, I want to respect it, but I do want to mention that I'm also here to advocate for accessible community solar that everyone can afford to own so that we can all see those benefits and help reduce carbon emissions. Stop disconnections forever, no to a rate hike, and keep the rack. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Meredith McGuire, followed by Deborah Ponce.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the CPS board. I am deeply concerned about climate justice in the face of increasingly rapid climate change, especially here in one of the most heavily affected regions, climate change seems to be so much closer to the tipping point than it was projected only a few years ago when our San Antonio Climate Action and Adaptation was planned. Because the tipping point means that it will be impossible in the future to prevent greater and more frequent extreme disasters. Since 2013, I've been working as a volunteer to fight for the strongest climate actions that San Antonio is capable of accomplishing, because I care deeply for the well-being of my children, former students, and their children. For the sake of the youth, CPS must stop supporting the corporations that are selling fossil fuels, especially so-called natural gas or methane. Methane has a much shorter atmospheric lifetime than carbon dioxide, around 12 years compared to centuries, but it absorbs so much more energy while it exists in the atmosphere, and it's a source of ozone and dangerous air pollutant. CPS must change rate structure to stop giving discounts to the heaviest users of electricity. Our goal must be to provide essential amounts of electricity at a rate that each household can afford. Businesses, too, must be impelled to invest in efficiency measures such as weatherization and investing in energy-efficient equipment like HVAC heat pumps. San Antonio is well-positioned to maximize its local grid's resilience by promoting many microgrids throughout the area. When the regional grid starts rolling blackouts, San Antonio could rely on the local microgrids. I'd be happy to talk with you about this and many other valuable measures that CPS could use now. Thank you for your time and attention. And by the way, there is a handout for y'all. Could you please make a point of getting some of those to the other people who are not here tonight?
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll do so. Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Deborah Ponce, followed by Christopher Mayorga.
Hello, my name is Deborah Ponce. I am an organizer with Public Citizen Climate Justice Organizing Group. I'm here to ask CPS to stop and rethink the upcoming rate hike for 2024. Our electric bills have gone up because of a lot of things. Our electric bills, our groceries, just living overall. I mean, we all know it's hot. I'm kind of preaching to the choir. I know I am. But I know that there's got to be some other avenues that we can do. Why do the families and the individuals always have to absorb the rate hikes? It's time for businesses and to look at other entities and increase their bills this year, not ours. Maybe do ours another year, I don't know. But I'm asking for you to please consider all of these things. We do have the RAC committee, and this is an amazing group of individuals that are well-trained in these areas, and I hope that we keep them in place past July. They're very important to all of us, and they speak for us in a way that we can't. The areas that I come from, families can't handle more, and that's mainly my main message here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our final speaker is Christopher Mayorga.
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Mayorga. I live here in San Antonio on the northeast side. Rate hikes will only make it more difficult for working class families to pay their bills. If you must increase the rates, please revise your rate structure to be more equitable. Small homes, renters, and those who live in mobile homes should not be paying a higher rate than big businesses and large homes. We also need more action on clean energy. The STEP program is a great way to lower the bills for low-income families, but we need to go further. We should be incentivizing families to purchase more efficient electric appliances, such as heat pumps and electric stovetops. Many homes in San Antonio have gas furnaces or gas stovetops, which drive up energy bills and pollute the air. Heat pumps are always more efficient than gas furnaces because rather than creating heat, they move heat from the outside air or the ground into a home, lowering our overall energy demand and emissions profile. Electric appliances also have the benefit of being able to run on clean electricity, which is essential to meeting our climate goals. I'm glad that the board approved the closure of Spruce Coal Plant and is continuing to add more renewable energy to its portfolio. I encourage more investment in community solar. The existing program with Big Sun Solar is a great start, but it's my understanding that only 20% of its customers were low-income households. Future programs should have a goal of at least 50% low-income families. These programs should also come with jobs and training for local communities. We can mitigate the urban heat island effect by covering parking lots of residential and commercial buildings with solar canopies so that all San Antonio residents can benefit from clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was our final registered speaker.
Again, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for presenting everybody who's here. Again, this is another example of our desire to engage with you. Those of you who make the time to be with us today, we sincerely appreciate it, including staff. You know, it's not easy when we have long days like this, but this is important to the public. And so thank you for all of you who are here today. The next item actually is just to adjourn. If there's no questions, do you have any questions or feedback, Dr. Romero? Anybody? Well, on that note, then I want to go ahead and officially adjourn the public input session for this evening, and the time is 5:45. And again, thank you, everyone.